Federal government orders Sowore Dasuki's immediate release. ECOWAS calls for quick solutions to border closure. On the international scene, several persons injured in Christmas balloon drop in Sydney, Australia. And in sport, 7 Eritrean players gone missing after Sekafa Senior Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Top 2 high-profile detainees in custody of the Department of State Services are to regain their freedom with immediate effect. The federal government has ordered the immediate release of former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki and convener of #RevolutionNow Omoyele Sowore. This was announced in a statement on Tuesday by Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami. He said the decision to release Sowore and his co-accused was in compliance with the bail granted them by the court. He advised the 2 defendants to observe the terms of their bail and refrain from engaging in court any act that is inimical to public peace and national security, as well as their ongoing trial, which will run in course in accordance with the laws of the land and code. Sowore has been in DSS custody since August. A non-governmental agency, the Save Humanity Advocacy Center, is calling on the Nigerian president to prosecute those who sponsor terrorists. It says the terrorists have perpetrated sustained attacks on humanitarian workers in the country. The group made the call after the recent killing of 4 aid workers in Borno State. The center's executive director, Joyce Ogo, said in a statement on Monday that significant efforts should be made to ensure persistent attacks on humanitarian works in the country are reduced to the barest minimum. Ogo called on the Nigerian military to continue rendering selfless service and to ensure that no more Nigerian territories fall under the control of Boko Haram terrorists. The authority of the ECOWAS heads of state and government is calling on Nigeria, Benin Republic and Niger to quickly resolve the existing border issues. A final communique read by President of the ECOWAS Commission, Jean-Claude Breur, and released in Abuja on Monday, urged the tripartite ministerial committee of the 3 countries to accelerate negotiations. ECOWAS also says member states should fully implement the protocol of free movement as it relates to the right of entry, residence and establishment. The authority says the protocol of free movement of persons and goods is facing implementation challenges because of the partial closure of Nigerian land borders. The communique also calls for increased efforts to implement regional infrastructure projects. It says this would open up some countries and ensure seamless intra-community trade and improve security. Lagos city dwellers are not strangers to daily interminable traffic jams that result in terrible gridlocks on so many roads in the city. Trips that should take just a few minutes most often turn out to be major hours-long travels. In efforts to find solutions to the problems, alternative transportation modes are being tried, including water taxis. The Badmus reports that water transportation is gaining popularity in Lagos.
If there's one thing Lagos is notorious for, it is traffic jam. One research shows residents spend an estimated 6 hours in traffic commuting around the city every day. But with the city's improving ferry service, more residents are now trying out the waterways, which cut commuting time by about 90%. And Sandra is one of them.
The ferry does it fast, yeah, because I spend barely 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes getting to work on the island. But if I'm going to take the bus, I spend close to 3 to 4 hours, depending on the time I leave my house. The ferry is very seamless. I mean, boarding, very seamless. It's very convenient for me. It's quicker for me and stress-free, really, basically.
The improved ferry service in the city is thanks in part to Lagos Water Taxi, or WAXI for short, run by a local firm, Hallow Waters. CEO Andrew Olanna says his initial plan was to operate large vessels that would carry petroleum product, but had to change his mind because of the financial constraints and the opportunity he saw in water transportation.
When we started in 2000 2018 March, the ridership was about 2,000 passengers daily, in out, 2,000 out of Ikorodu and then 2,000 into Ikorodu. Now the figure has grown to about 3,005 daily each way. Unfortunately, with the limited resources that we have, we're only able to capture less than 10% of that market, while the substandard boats are still the one operating a sizable portion of the market.
In a city of about 20 million people, only around 700,000 residents commute by waterways, leaving the rest to make use of the roads. And with no railway system in place, it's only natural that the roads would be congested. Experts say water transportation is the way to go to help address the city's traffic chaos.
It puzzles us when we hear things like the government has gone to buy BRT buses and they're doing this and they're doing that. You know, you're congesting the road more by putting 800 buses on the road. Now you're saying that the infrastructure is poor, the roads are collapsing and all of that, and you're buying 800 more buses and putting on the same road. If you put 800 boats on the water, it's not going to weigh the water down. It's a service that needs to be provided, but private sector is waiting to take over that business.
Despite the waxy initiative, investment in the city's water transportation is still very low. And there's also the issue of safety concerns by commuters.
A lot of us are not wonderful swimmers, and this is what we're talking about. So really, yes, people are scared of using the water because they don't feel safe. Nothing is guaranteed, but I mean, just the feeling of being safe will enable someone decide to try out a new means of transportation. Example, the water. So users are not safe yet, you know. So if we can work on safety, if we can really work on safety, it will go a long way to, you know, encourage users to apply the waterways.
Waxy is setting the trend in safety, and it is the reason why more and more people are now getting attracted to the waterways. But Lagos water transportation is still far from the ideal. It requires much more investment than it is getting at the moment. And until that happens, the road would continue to remain the preferred means of transportation. And that can only mean one thing: more traffic nightmares in a city reeling from congestion.
Coming up, African stories. Egypt to replace tuk-tuks with minivans. And later, international news. Many injured in Sydney, Australia, Christmas balloon drop.
Ethiopia says it has made significant progress in the construction of a flagship Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam project. Negotiations to resolve a dispute with Egypt over filling the dam's reservoir is still ongoing. Egypt is worried the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam will restrict supplies of already scarce Nile waters, on which it is almost entirely dependent. Ethiopian government believes the $4 billion Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam will generate more than 6,000 megawatts power. The dam is designed to be the centerpiece of Ethiopia's bid to become Africa's biggest power exporter. Ethiopian lawmakers visited the construction site, where the project management team says 70% of the works have been completed. General manager of the project, engineer Kifli Horror, also said 2 turbines that are expected to generate 750 megawatts of electricity by the beginning of 2021 are progressing well. The dam project is scheduled to be fully completed in 2023. Meanwhile, Sudan's irrigation minister said on Sunday his country, Egypt and Ethiopia have come closer to aligning their views on filling the reservoir and operating the giant hydroelectric dam. Last month, Egyptian, Ethiopian and Sudanese foreign ministers agreed to work together, resolving their dispute over the dam by January, after meeting with the U.S. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin and World Bank President David Malpass in Washington. They met again at the same venue this month and are due for a third meeting in January, where they will finalize an agreement to resolve the dispute. The U.S. administration invited the three sides for talks after Egypt called for an external mediator on the issue, saying three-way talks had been exhausted. A United Nations report last year indicated that Rwanda had one of the worst drinking problems in the East African region. Now the government wants to take a step to change the landscape. It is considering raising the legal age for buying and consuming alcohol from 18 to between 20 and 25 years. The government says the current policy has failed to contain alcohol abuse among teenagers. Minister of Gender and Family Promotion, Celine Indrian Binanana, said there is a rise in alcohol abuse among the youth, and the situation calls for fresh impetus to fight the scourge. The Rwandan National Police had imposed strict drinking and driving rules. The move to raise the legal alcohol age is one of the latest strategies the government is considering to curb alcohol abuse. The World Health Organization says more than 5% of all deaths are caused by excessive alcohol consumption. Motorized rickshaws known as tuk-tuks have ruled the streets of many African cities for quite some time. Cairo slums have had them for more than 2 decades, and now the government is taking its most ambitious stand yet against the polluting three-wheeled vehicles in a push to modernize the country's neglected transport system. It plans to replace the tuk-tuks with clean-running minivans. Yuzur Hakim report.
Khalid Asmat works 8 hours every day on his tuk-tuk in Cairo. He transports the poor people in this neighborhood. Khalid is one of many who are forced to give up their small three-wheeled vehicle.
I don't mind the new regulations, but what's more important for me is to be allowed to be licensed. I'm ready to pay the tax, insurance and license fees. That's better than confiscating it, because this is our livelihood.
At 10 cents a ride, the tuk-tuks are convenient for majority low-income earners. However, they have been a source of chaos in Egyptian streets.
They
have been the source of widespread crime. Murders, looting and harassment have increased using tuk-tuks. They've also filled streets, bridges and roads where they're not supposed to be. They were made for the small villages and tiny streets only. But now they are everywhere, and that's why the government decided to ban them.
The government believes the minivans would be easier to control. It's also environmentally friendly, using natural gas rather than fuel. According to the new law, tuk-tuk owners are required to sell it for scrap and are given long-term, low-interest rate loans to purchase taxi minivans instead. The procedures have already begun.
The process of replacing the tuk-tuks with minivans could cost the state more than $22 billion and will take 3 years according to the announced plans. It might face some resistance from drivers at the beginning, but I believe it will prove a success.
There are 3 million tuk-tuks roaming the streets. Only 99,000 are licensed. The licensed ones will be allowed to continue, but only in small villages and roads not accessible by cars.
Puppetry art exists in Tunisia and is rooted in the cultural identity of the country. The art of puppetry has been known and recognized since the dawn of time as a promotion of artistic skills. This year's Tunisia annual puppetry celebrations have just taken place, and reporter Adnan Chawochi was there.
This is the first participation of Hop Signor Puppet Theatre from Greece to Carthage Days of Puppetry Arts. Tabula Rosa is the story of a tiny character. A writer, absorbed in his work, keeps shrinking in his room.
It's a performance about the difficulties that someone has to create. So the writer is shrinking in order to create something. And in the end of the performance, he meets his muse, his inspiration. So it's, let's say, a simple story with string puppets.
It's the holiday season in Tunisia. Children have come from many regions to enjoy the international performances that tell universal stories on human values.
I have learned so much from the character, like the importance of reading and writing, and the sacrifice of writers to publish books for children.
Ayub is a young visitor who's discovering the art of puppetry. He's watched live performances and attended workshops to learn how to create, personalize, and manipulate puppets.
This
event is fantastic. I've learned so much at Culture City. I've written my own scenario and tried to manipulate different puppets. This art nurtures the imagination.
The art of puppetry was neglected in the past, but now we're witnessing a revival of this art, as children and youth are learning the techniques of making puppets.
Dozens of Tunisian and African puppets are exhibited at the main hall of the City of Culture. The installation recreates the history of this artistic discipline in the region. The puppetry art is rooted in Tunisia's cultural identity. The Carthage Days of Puppetry Art is the best event through which this art is being promoted as one of the most appropriate forms of expression and communication for children and adult audiences.
When we return, international news. Many injured in Sydney, Australia Christmas balloon drop. And later, sports. 7 Eritrea players gone missing after Sekafa Senior Cup.
The United Nations extrajudicial executions investigator Agnes Callamard, Turkey and international rights groups have jointly condemned Saudi Arabia's verdict in the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. They say it failed to deliver justice. Human rights groups say Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says must know the sentencing to death of 5 persons for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi would not put the matter to rest. 5 persons were sentenced to death on Monday over the brutal killing of Khashoggi by a team of Saudi agents inside the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul last October. But 2 top aides to powerful Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman were exonerated. The Saudi prosecutor's office says a total of 31 persons were investigated in connection with the killing and that 11 were charged. 3 were handed jail terms totaling 24 years and the rest were acquitted. None of the defendants' names have been released. In a series of tweets, Callamard explains that the verdict contravened international law. Critics say the brutal killing last year has shamed the kingdom. They also say it has caused lasting harm to Saudi Arabia's global standing and damaged Prince Mohammed's personal reputation. 5 persons have been taken to hospital after a pre-Christmas balloon drop at a Sydney shopping centre caused by a dangerous chaos. Police confirmed most of the crowd were injured when the shoppers surged as a prize-filled balloons were released during Westfield Parramatta's mega balloon drop at midnight. Paramedics treated 12 persons at the scene and 5 were taken to the hospital. Inspector Phil Temperman says 3 of the transported patients had more serious issues, including traumatic chest injuries, neck and back pain, as well as nausea and dizziness. Hundreds of shoppers tried to grab balloons which were stuffed with prizes. The incident took place at the end of a marathon Christmas shopping event. The mall's owners have promised an investigation. U.S. Senate leaders at loggerheads over how to go about the rules of President Trump's impeachment trial. And so far, Democrats have refused to hand over the impeachment charges to the Senate after the House votes last week. They want assurances from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell that there would be a fair trial. Top Democrat Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says the recent release of an explosive email about aid to Ukraine is a reminder of why openness is necessary. But Republican Mitch McConnell says he has not ruled out allowing witnesses. President Trump was formally impeached by the House last week for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. The trial is expected to begin next month after the holiday break. Christmas is the time of the year that brings out the goodness in people, and there is more generosity toward the underprivileged in many countries during Christmas. So it is in Brazil, where a non-profit organization is undertaking a major food drive to ensure many of the country's poor would not go hungry this Christmas. Lucretia Fancro has the heartwarming story.
It is a massive operational effort. Brazil's Christmas Without Hunger campaign, the result of an NGO-UN partnership, has been stocking food donations since October in this warehouse in Rio de Janeiro. Now the food is being distributed throughout the country to some 100,000 families. Glaucia, a mother of 5, is one of the beneficiaries. She's unemployed and lives in the neighborhood of Santa Cruz, some 2 hours away from Rio's downtown area.
If we could get this kind of help every month, it would be much better. But we need to be very grateful because it really makes a huge difference for us at this time of year.
She's not alone. According to the latest official figures, 13.5 million Brazilians live on less than $1.90 a day. But this, experts say, is just the tip of the iceberg.
What is more worrying is that you have more than 1/4 of the Brazilian population that is below the $5.5 a day poverty line. That's the line the World Bank recommends for countries like Brazil with middle-high income.
Suspended in 2007, the food drive restarted in 2017, and this year carries the slogan, "Hunger is not fake," a response to Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, who earlier this year described hunger reports as a big lie.
There are fake news, but hunger is very real. It's increasing, it's getting worse. So we have to deal with this problem because it's a shame for Brazil.
Beyond feeding the hungry, organizers want to raise awareness about the need to create public policies to help people living in poverty and prevent Brazil's return to the UN hunger map. The campaign aims to collect some 600 tons of food. It may seem like a lot, but organizers say it is symbolic. It will only last a week, and by no means it will solve Brazil's hunger crisis. Despite a recent drop in unemployment, the rate remains in double digits, with more than 12 million jobless Brazilians and many more sliding below the poverty line. Glaucia just prays for better days ahead, when she will not have to spend Christmas depending on donations to feed her family.
Up next, sports. Eritrean players gone missing after Sekafa Senior Cup. Please stay with us.
Former Eagles midfielder Henry Nwosu has backed Senegalese striker Sadio Mane in criticizing CAF for leaving out Nigerians Wilfred Ndidi and Odion Igalo from the prestigious African Player of the Year award. Nwosu told reporters, though Salah and Mane, along with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, emerged as EPL's joint highest scorer last season, Mane has had an exceptional year than the other contenders. Meanwhile, also had faulted CAF for not recognizing the hard work of Leicester City's Wilfred Ndidi and Leeds' Victor Osimhen in the year under review. He said both players deserve prominent position than to finish outside the top 3 for the African Player of the Year. 7 players from the Eritrean football team have gone missing after playing in the East African Regional Championship in Uganda. The rest of the squad have returned home from the Sekafa Senior Challenge Cup, where they finished as runners-up. It's the second time this year footballers from Eritrea have disappeared while on international duty. 5 players fled from the hotel during Sekafa Under-20 Challenge Cup in October. Sekafa are searching for the players and have informed Ugandan authorities about their disappearance. That is ANN News this evening.